The Grand Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive station built by 7 different species over the course of 3 centuries. Inside the main hall, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for what had become a typical session, arguing over borders, trade routes, and who had the right to claim which empty planets. Commander Jake Morrison watched it all from his hidden ship, the HSS Wanderer, cloaked and silent just outside the station's sensor range. He had been doing this for 3 months now, watching and recording everything the Galactic Council did. His orders were simple: observe, learn, and never be seen. "They're at it again," said Lisa Chen, the ship's ambassador and second in command. She stood next to Jake, watching the holographic display that showed the council floor. "The Skorath want the Kepler expanse. The Vezek say it's theirs." Jake nodded slowly. The Skorath were a species of large reptilian beings, covered in dark scales and built for war. They spoke in harsh, growling voices and seemed to enjoy intimidation. The Vezek were different insect-like creatures with multiple arms and compound eyes that gleamed with intelligence. Both species had powerful fleets and neither wanted to back down. "How long have they been arguing?" Jake asked. 4 hours, Lisa replied. Same points over and over. A third voice joined the debate on the council floor. This one belonged to a luminari, a being made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful patterns. The luminari were historians and record keepers, obsessed with preserving the past. "Perhaps," the luminary named Crystallis said, his voice like wind chimes, "we should remember that the Kepler expanse once belonged to another." This got everyone's attention. The arguing stopped. "What do you mean?" demanded the Skorath representative, a massive warrior named Krath. Crystallis projected an image into the center of the chamber. It showed ancient ruins on a dead planet, and carved into the stone were symbols that no one alive could read. "These markings," Crystallis explained, "match records from the old databases. They are written in the language of the humans." Several council members laughed. Others rolled their eyes or made dismissive gestures with whatever appendages they had. "Humans are myths," said a Delphine representative, her aquatic suit bubbling softly. The Delphine looked like dolphins that had learned to walk on 2 legs. "Stories for children. They never existed." "I must disagree," Crystallis insisted. The evidence suggests nothing," Krath interrupted. "Old carvings on dead worlds, so what? They could be from any extinct species. There are hundreds of dead civilizations in the galaxy." Jake felt his jaw tighten as he watched. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair a little harder. "Easy," Lisa whispered, putting a hand on his shoulder. "They don't know any better." "They should," Jake muttered. For over 1,000 years, humanity had hidden itself from the galaxy. After a terrible civil war that nearly destroyed their entire species, the survivors had decided to retreat. They pulled back to Earth and a handful of colony worlds, cloaking everything, hiding from the universe. They watched as other species rose and fell, as new civilizations formed and old ones crumbled, and they waited. Jake had been born on Earth in the city of New Detroit, built over the ruins of the old one. He had grown up learning about the time before, when humans had been bold and proud and had nearly destroyed themselves because of it. Every child learned the lesson: power without wisdom leads to ashes. But watching these aliens dismiss his entire species as mythology still stung. "The Skorath Empire claims the Kepler expanse," Krath announced, standing to his full height of nearly 8 feet. "Any who dispute this claim may settle it through combat." No one responded. The Skorath military was too strong. Everyone knew it. "Then we are done here," Krath said with satisfaction. He turned and walked out, followed by his guards. Jake switched off the display. "Get me Admiral Drake," he said. Lisa moved to the communication station and established a quantum link back to Earth. It would take a few minutes to connect. Quantum communication was instant, but establishing a secure link through all the encryption and security protocols took time. While they waited, Jake looked at his crew. There were only 12 people aboard the Wanderer. It was a small ship, designed for stealth and reconnaissance, not combat. Danny Rodriguez ran the engineering section, keeping their experimental cloaking system running smoothly. Ashley Brooks handled tactical, though they never expected to fight. The rest of the crew managed navigation, sensors, life support, and all the other systems that kept them alive in the void. "Connection established," Lisa announced. Admiral Kevin Drake's face appeared on the screen. He was in his 60s, with gray hair cut military short, and eyes that had seen too many battles. He sat in his office on Earth half a galaxy away, but the quantum link made it seem like he was right there. "Report, Commander," Drake said. "The Skorath are expanding again," Jake told him. "They just claimed the Kepler expanse." "No one challenged them," Drake frowned. "That region borders the Karathi homeworlds." "I know. The Karathi are pacifists. If the Skorath move on them, it'll be a massacre," Jake finished. Both men were quiet for a moment. They both knew what that meant. The Karathi were a peaceful species of bird-like beings. They had beautiful feathers in shades of blue and green, and they lived in harmony with their environment. They had no military, no weapons, nothing to defend themselves with. They believed in art, music, and philosophy. War was foreign to their entire culture. "We continue to observe," Drake said finally. "Those are your orders, Commander. Observe only." "And if the Skorath attack the Karathi?" "We observe." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew better. He had his orders. Humanity had agreed to stay hidden, to not interfere, to let the galaxy handle its own problems. Getting involved would reveal their existence, and that could lead to wars that would make the Skorath expansion look small by comparison. "Understood, sir," Jake said. The transmission ended. Lisa looked at him with concern in her eyes. "You're not okay with this," she said. "No," Jake admitted. "I'm not. But orders are orders." 3 days later, Skorath warships began massing at the border of Karathi space. Long-range sensors picked up at least 200 vessels, all heavily armed. Jake sent reports back to Earth daily, each one more urgent than the last. On the 5th day, a small Karathi delegation arrived at the Galactic Council station, requesting an emergency session. Jake watched as 3 Karathi representatives stood before the council, their feathers ruffled with fear. "Please," said their leader, an elderly Karathi named Shill. "The Skorath have surrounded our homeworlds. They demand we surrender and submit to their rule. We have no weapons. We have no way to fight them. We beg the council for help." The council chamber filled with uncomfortable silence. Representatives looked at each other, at their feet, at the ceiling, anywhere but at the frightened Karathi. Finally, Crystallis spoke. "The Luminari stand with the Karathi. We offer what support we can." "As do the Delphine," added their representative. But everyone knew it wasn't enough. The Luminari and Delphine had small fleets, mostly for exploration and trade. Combined, they might have 50 warships. Against 200 Skorath battlecruisers, they would be crushed. Krath stood up, a cruel smile on his reptilian face. "The Karathi may choose. Submit to Skorath rule and become part of our empire, or resist and be destroyed. You have 2 of your days to decide." The transmission ended. The Karathi delegation left the chamber, their wings drooping in defeat. Jake stood up from his chair so fast it nearly fell over. "This is wrong," he said. "Jake," Lisa began, but he cut her off. "This is wrong, and we both know it. We're about to watch an entire species get enslaved or wiped out, and we're going to do nothing. We have our orders. To hell with orders." Jake shouted, then immediately felt bad for raising his voice at Lisa. She wasn't the enemy. She was just following protocol, same as him. Danny Rodriguez spoke up from the engineering station. "Skipper, I have to say I'm with you." "This feels wrong," Ashley Brooks nodded. "We have the weapons to make a difference. The Wanderer might be small, but our technology is centuries ahead of theirs." Jake looked at his crew. Every single one of them was watching him, waiting to see what he would do. He was the commander. The choice was his, but what choice did he have? If he disobeyed orders and revealed humanity's existence, he might start a war. If he did nothing, the Karathi would die or become slaves. He sat back down, feeling the weight of the universe on his shoulders. "We stay hidden," he said quietly. "Those are our orders." The next day, the Skorath invaded Karathi space. Jake watched it all through his sensors. 200 Skorath warships descended on the peaceful Karathi worlds like a plague. The Karathi had no shields, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. Cities burned, ships fled in panic only to be shot down. In the first hour, the sensors detected over 10,000 Karathi deaths. In the second hour, it was 50,000. Jake sat in his chair, hands clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Lisa stood beside him, silent tears running down her face. The rest of the crew watched in horror as the massacre continued. "How long?" Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sir? Ashley said. How long until they're all dead? All the Kirathi? Ashley checked her calculations. At this rate, 3 days. Maybe 4. The Wanderer cut through space at speeds that would have amazed any Galactic Council scientist. Human ships had something the rest of the galaxy didn't. Dimensional drives that folded space itself. What should have taken days took hours. Jake stood on the bridge watching the tactical display. Kirathi Prime was ahead, its beautiful blue and green surface now marked with orange spots where cities burned. Hundreds of Skorath ships orbited the planet like vultures, occasionally firing down at fleeing refugees. I'm picking up an escape pod, Ashley called out from tactical. Small craft, Kirathi design. It's damaged and losing altitude fast. Jake looked at the coordinates. The pod was falling toward a mountainous region, far from the main battles. It would crash in less than 5 minutes. Can we reach it? He asked. Danny worked his console frantically. If we push the engines, yeah. But we'll have to decloak to use the tractor beam. Do it, Jake ordered. Danny, get us there. Ashley, prepare the medical bay. Lisa, you're with me. We're going down to meet our guest. The Wanderer accelerated, pushing its engines beyond normal limits. The ship shuddered slightly as it broke through the planet's atmosphere, still cloaked from sensors but now visible to anyone who looked up at the right time. They found the escape pod spiraling out of control, smoke trailing behind it. Ashley locked the tractor beam on it just seconds before it would have crashed into a mountainside. The beam caught the pod and pulled it gently toward the Wanderer's cargo bay. Got it, Ashley announced. Pod is secure. Jake and Lisa rushed to the cargo bay. They could hear alarms blaring inside the damaged pod. The outer hull was scorched and cracked. It looked like it had taken a direct hit from a Skorath plasma weapon. Get this thing open, Jake ordered. 2 crew members used cutting tools to slice through the jammed door. It fell away with a crash and smoke poured out. Inside, they could see a figure slumped in the pilot's seat. Lisa rushed in without hesitation. She was trained as a medic, among other things. All ambassadors learned basic medicine in case they had to deal with first contact situations. She just never imagined the first contact would be like this. The figure was Kirathi, a young female by the look of her plumage. Her feathers were a beautiful shade of turquoise now stained with blood. One of her wings was bent at an unnatural angle. She was barely conscious. Hey, Lisa said softly, carefully checking the Kirathi's vital signs. Hey, can you hear me? You're safe now. The Kirathi's eyes fluttered open. They were large and golden like an eagle's eyes. She tried to speak but only managed a weak chirping sound. Don't try to talk, Lisa told her. We're going to get you to the medical bay. Jake helped Lisa carefully lift the Kirathi onto a stretcher. She was surprisingly light, her bones hollow like earthbirds. They rushed her to the medical bay where the ship's automated systems began scanning her injuries. The damage was extensive. Broken wing, 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, severe burns on her left side. But nothing the medical bay couldn't handle. Human medicine had advanced far beyond anything else in the galaxy. As the medical systems worked, the Kirathi slowly regained consciousness. Her eyes opened fully and she looked around in confusion. Then she saw Jake and Lisa standing over her and her eyes went even wider. What are you? She whispered in her own language. The Wanderer's computers automatically translated it. We're humans, Lisa said gently. My name is Lisa, this is Jake, we rescued you from your escape pod. The Kirathi stared at them. Humans? But humans are myths. Stories, you're not real. Jake smiled sadly. We're very real. What's your name? Silith, the Kirathi said. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. Easy, Lisa told her. You're badly hurt. The medical systems are healing you, but it'll take time. Silith looked at the machines around her, at the displays showing her own body's internal structure. Her species didn't have this kind of technology. No one in the galaxy did. How is this possible? She breathed. The legends say humans vanished thousands of years ago. We didn't vanish, Jake explained. We hid. We had a war among ourselves, a bad one. It almost destroyed us. The survivors decided to step back from the galaxy until we learned to be better. Tears formed in Silith's golden eyes. And now you come back just in time to watch my people die. Jake felt that like a knife to the chest. That's not going to happen. You can't stop the Skorath, Silith said bitterly. No one can. They're too strong. They're strong compared to the other species, yes, Lisa agreed. But we're not like the other species. Syleth looked at her with a mix of hope and disbelief. You would help us, why? It was a good question. Jake thought about it for a moment before answering. Because it's the right thing to do. Because we've seen what happens when good people do nothing. Because we refuse to watch another genocide. Before Syleth could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Ashley's voice came over the intercom, urgent and stressed. Captain to the bridge. We've got Skorath warships incoming. They detected our tractor beam signature. Jake squeezed Syleth's hand gently. Rest, heal, we'll take care of this. He and Lisa ran back to the bridge. The tactical display showed 5 Skorath battlecruisers converging on their position. They were massive ships, each one bristling with weapons. They're hailing us, Ashley reported. Put them through, Jake said. The view screen activated, showing a Skorath commander. He was even bigger than most of his kind, with scars across his scaled face and eyes like yellow ice. Unknown vessel, the Skorath growled. You will identify yourself immediately and prepare to be boarded. Interference with Skorath military operations is a crime punishable by death. Jake took a deep breath. This was it. The moment humanity stepped back onto the galactic stage. After 1,000 years of hiding, they were about to make one hell of an entrance. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet vessel Wanderer. You are hereby ordered to cease your attack on the Kirathi people and withdraw from the system immediately. The Skorath commander stared at him for a long moment. Then he started laughing, a harsh barking sound. Human? There are no such things as humans. But whoever you are, you just signed your death warrant. The transmission cut off. The 5 battlecruisers began moving into attack formation. They're powering up weapons, Ashley announced. Multiple plasma cannons locking onto us. Shields up, Jake ordered. But don't fire back. Not yet, Jake, Lisa said quietly. We can't fight 5 battlecruisers. We won't have to, Jake replied. He turned to Danny. Send the signal. Danny nodded and pressed a series of buttons on his console. A quantum transmission burst out from the Wanderer, a pre-programmed message that traveled instantly back to Earth. The message was simple. Humanity is revealed. Requesting immediate support. On Earth, alarms began ringing in every military facility. Admiral Kevin Drake looked at the message on his screen and felt his blood run cold. He had feared this day would come. Part of him had hoped it never would. But now it was here and he had to make a choice. Court-martial Jake for disobeying orders or support him and commit humanity to whatever came next. Drake was a military man. He believed in following orders. But he was also a father, a grandfather, a human being who remembered the old Earth saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. He stood up from his desk and walked out of his office. His aide looked up in surprise. Sir? Get me President Mitchell, Drake said, and activate the fleet. Which fleet, sir? Drake's jaw set in a hard line. All of them. Back on the Wanderer, the Skorath battlecruisers opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. They hit the Wanderer's shields and did nothing. The shields didn't even flicker. Jake watched the Skorath commander's face on the view screen. The alien's confidence vanished, replaced by confusion and then fear. Impossible, the Skorath whispered. What are you? We're the species you thought was a myth, Jake said. We're the ones who built the ruins you've been finding on dead worlds. We're the reason those ancient warning beacons tell you to stay away from certain regions of space. We're humanity, and we're done hiding. The Skorath ships fired again, all 5 of them unleashing everything they had. The space around the Wanderer lit up like a small sun, and still the shields held. Target their weapons systems, Jake ordered. Disable them, don't destroy them. Ashley worked her console and the Wanderer's own weapons came online. They were small, precise, and impossibly advanced. A series of quantum pulses shot out, each one hitting a Skorath ship with pinpoint accuracy. Every weapon system on all 5 battlecruisers shut down simultaneously. The Skorath commander stared in disbelief at his dead controls. His ships were floating helplessly, unable to fight, unable to flee. Now, Jake said, you're going to listen very carefully. You're going to pull all your forces out of Kirathi space. You're going to return home and tell your superiors that if the Skorath Empire wants a war with humanity, you'll get one. But I promise you it won't end well for you. You're bluffing, the Skorath said, but his voice shook. One ship can't fight an entire empire. Jake smiled. Who said anything about one ship? At that exact moment, space itself began to tear open around Kirathi Prime. Quantum jump windows appeared by the dozens, then by the hundreds, then by the thousands. Each window was a doorway through. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the most crowded in its 300-year history. Every species had sent their highest-ranking officials. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy and fearful whispers. Holographic displays showed the same images over and over, 10,000 human warships surrounding Karathi Prime, their weapons capable of destroying entire fleets without breaking a sweat. President Ryan Mitchell sat in his office on Earth, watching the council session through a secure feed. He was a tall man in his 50s with gray beginning to show in his dark hair. He had been president for only 2 years, elected on promises of education reform and economic growth. He never imagined he would be the one to lead humanity back onto the galactic stage. General Ashley Harper stood beside his desk, arms crossed, watching the same feed. She was the highest-ranking military officer on Earth, a veteran of the border conflicts with rogue AI systems 30 years ago. She had supported Admiral Drake's decision to deploy the fleet, but even she seemed nervous about what came next. "They're terrified," Mitchell observed. "They should be," Harper replied. "We just demonstrated military superiority that they can't comprehend. Every species in that council is probably calculating whether we're going to conquer them next." "Are we?" Harper looked at him sharply. "Sir? Are we going to conquer them?" Mitchell repeated. "We have the power. We could take control of the entire galaxy in a matter of weeks, maybe days. Is that what you want to do, Mr. President?" Mitchell sighed and rubbed his eyes. No. That's exactly what we were trying to avoid when we went into hiding. Power corrupts absolutely, and all that. Then we need to make our intentions clear, Harper said. Fast, because right now we're Schrodinger's threat. They don't know if we're here to help or to conquer, and that uncertainty is more dangerous than anything. Mitchell nodded. "Contact Ambassador Katie Reeves. Tell her it's time." Across the solar system on Mars Station 7, Ambassador Katie Reeves received the message. She had been preparing for this moment for weeks, ever since the Wanderer first reported the Scoreth buildup near Karathi space. She knew Jake Morrison personally. They had been friends at the academy. She knew he would never stand by and watch a genocide, orders or no orders. Katie was in her 40s, with red hair pulled back in a professional bun and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She had negotiated treaties with rogue colony worlds, mediated disputes between mining corporations, and once talked down a ship's AI that had gone insane. She was humanity's best diplomat, and she was about to face her greatest challenge. "Are we ready?" she asked her assistant, a young man named Greg who looked like he might throw up at any moment. "The shuttle is prepared," Greg managed. "Ambassador, are you sure about this? Going to the council station without military escort? They could arrest you, or worse." "They could," Katie agreed, picking up her briefcase, "but they won't. They're too scared of what the fleet might do if they harm me. That fear is our shield right now." She walked to the shuttle bay, her footsteps echoing in the corridor. Behind her, Greg hurried to keep up, carrying her additional materials and notes. The shuttle was small and sleek, painted white with the symbol of United Earth on its side, a blue and green planet surrounded by stars. The pilot was already in position, running pre-flight checks. "Destination?" the pilot asked. "Galactic Council Station Alpha," Katie said, strapping into her seat. "And take us in slow and visible. I want them to see us coming." The shuttle launched from Mars and accelerated toward the council station. It took 6 hours to reach it, traveling at speeds that were intentionally slower than the shuttle was capable of. Katie wanted the council to track them the whole way, to see that humanity was willing to approach openly and peacefully. When they finally docked at the station, a security team was waiting. They were Vezek, their insectoid bodies covered in ceremonial armor. Their hands hovered near their weapons, but they didn't draw them. "Ambassador Katie Reeves of the United Earth Government," Katie said, stepping off the shuttle. "I'm here to address the council." The lead Vezek guard clicked his mandibles nervously. The council has not authorized your presence." "Then I suggest you ask them to make an exception," Katie said calmly, "because I'm not leaving until I speak to them, and I'm sure no one wants to see what happens if you try to forcibly remove me." It was a bluff, sort of. Katie had no idea what orders Admiral Drake had given regarding her safety. But the Vezek didn't know that. After a moment's hesitation, he spoke into a communicator in his own language. 5 minutes later, Katie was escorted into the council chamber. Every representative turned to look at her as she entered. Some looked curious, others looked fearful, a few looked angry. The Skorath representative, a different one than before since Krath had apparently been reassigned, looked like he wanted to leap across the chamber and strangle her. Katie walked calmly to the center of the floor, where speakers traditionally stood. She set her briefcase down, opened it, and pulled out a small holographic projector. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began. "My name is Katie Reeves, and I represent the United Earth government and all of humanity. I come before you today not as a conqueror, but as a neighbor who wishes to explain our presence and our intentions." "You attacked Skorath vessels," the new Skorath representative hissed. "That is an act of war." "We disabled Skorath vessels that were in the process of committing genocide," Katie corrected. "There's a difference. Every ship we targeted was returned to you intact, with all crew members alive. Can the same be said for the Kyrethi cities your forces bombed?" The Skorath representative fell silent, unable to answer that. Katie activated her holographic projector. It showed Earth, rotating slowly in the center of the chamber. Then the image expanded to show the solar system, then human colony worlds, then the full extent of human space. "This is our territory," Katie explained. "We control approximately 3% of the galaxy. We have 72 inhabited worlds and a population of approximately 43 billion. We are not a small, weak species that recently achieved spaceflight. We are an old species, perhaps older than any of yours, and we have been here all along." She changed the hologram to show historical images, ancient human cities, spacecraft from centuries ago, even some of the ruins that Crystallis had shown earlier. 1,047 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself in a civil war. The war was fought over ideology, over resources, over stupid, meaningless differences that cost billions of lives. When it finally ended, the survivors made a decision. We would retreat, we would hide, we would watch and learn and try to become better than we were. The chamber was completely silent now. Every being present was listening intently. "For over 1,000 years we observed your civilizations. We watched you make the same mistakes we made. We saw wars, injustice, cruelty, but we also saw beauty, cooperation, art, and progress. We learned from you just as we hope you can learn from us." She changed the hologram again, now showing the Skorath invasion of Kyrethi space. 3 days ago, we watched the Skorath Empire begin to exterminate the Kyrethi people. We faced a choice: continue hiding and let it happen, or reveal ourselves and intervene. Commander Jake Morrison made the choice to intervene. Admiral Kevin Drake made the choice to support him. President Ryan Mitchell made the choice to commit our full military strength. I stand here now to tell you that humanity made the choice to help, not to conquer. "Pretty words," said a Delphine representative. "But you still brought 10,000 warships. That doesn't look like help. That looks like invasion." "Those warships are still at Kyrethi Prime," Katie agreed, "protecting the Kyrethi people while they rebuild. Not claiming territory, not demanding tribute, protecting. For now," the Skorath representative said darkly. "What about tomorrow? Next week, next year? When will humanity decide that it should rule the galaxy?" Katie looked directly at him. "I can't predict the future. I can't promise that humanity will never make mistakes or never be tempted by power. We're not perfect. We're just people, same as all of you. But I can tell you this. We remember what power without restraint did to us. We remember the ashes and the ruins. We won't make that mistake again." She pulled out a data chip and held it up. "This chip contains our complete history. The good parts and the bad parts. The triumphs and the atrocities. Every mistake we ever made is recorded here. We're offering to share it with you so you can judge for yourselves what kind of species we are." Crystallis, the luminary historian, stood up. His crystalline body refracted the chamber's light in beautiful patterns. "I will accept your history. The luminari have long sought the truth about humanity. We welcome this knowledge." One by one, other representatives stood. The Delphine, the Kyrethi, who had sent Silith herself as their representative, her wing still healing. Even some of the smaller species that rarely spoke in council sessions. But not everyone was convinced. The Skorath remained seated, along with a few others who had benefited from Skorath military strength in the past. "We will study this information," said the council's presiding officer, a Nethera whose gaseous body swirled in its containment suit, "and we will..." 3 weeks after humanity's dramatic return to the galactic stage, Things were not going as smoothly as anyone had hoped. The Galactic Council had officially invited humanity to join as its 8th member species, but the vote had been close. 4 species in favor, 3 against. Only the requirement of a simple majority had let it pass. Katie Reeves sat in her new office on the council station, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. Not all of them were good. The Skorath Empire had mobilized its full military strength and was conducting aggressive military exercises near the borders of human space. Several smaller species had begun building up their own defenses, afraid that humanity's arrival signaled a new age of conflict. Trade routes were being disrupted as merchants grew nervous about traveling through regions where human ships might appear. We wanted to help, Katie muttered to herself, reading yet another report of economic disruption. How did we become the bad guys? A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called. Megan Foster entered, carrying a datapad and looking exhausted. Megan was the other human representative to the council, younger than Katie but equally sharp. She had been working 18-hour days trying to establish relationships with the various species. We have a problem, Megan said, sitting down heavily. Actually, we have several problems, but this one is urgent. What now? The Vezek have discovered something. They're calling an emergency session in 2 hours. Katie felt her stomach drop. Emergency sessions were never good news. What did they discover? They won't say. But their representative looked scared. Really scared. 2 hours later, Katie and Megan sat in the council chamber with representatives from all the member species. The Vezek representative, a diplomat named Vexlar, stood at the center of the floor. His compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights, and his mandibles clicked nervously. Honored council members, Vexlar began. 3 days ago, our science vessels discovered something in the Omega Nebula, a series of hidden facilities. He activated a holographic display showing a vast complex of stations and ships, all abandoned and drifting in space. But the architecture was familiar. Too familiar. These are Skorath facilities, Vexlar continued. Secret research stations that were not registered with the council. When our scientists investigated, they found something disturbing. The hologram changed to show laboratory equipment and strange devices. Then it showed tanks filled with bodies. Beings from dozens of different species, all dead or in stasis, connected to machines that were extracting genetic material. Katie felt sick. Beside her, Megan had gone pale. The Skorath have been conducting illegal genetic experiments, Vexlar said, trying to create hybrid soldiers using DNA from multiple species. They've been kidnapping beings from across the galaxy for years. We found evidence of at least 1,500 victims. The chamber erupted in outrage. Representatives shouted at the Skorath representative, who sat stone-faced and silent. But that's not the worst part, Vexlar said, and the chamber fell quiet again. We found human DNA at the facility. Extensive samples. The Skorath have been studying human genetics for at least 200 years. All eyes turned to Katie. She stood slowly, her mind racing. 200 years? But humanity had been hidden for over 1,000 years. Where had the Skorath gotten human DNA? Explain, she said, looking directly at the Skorath representative. Now. The Skorath representative stood, his scales rippling with what might have been shame or might have been anger. During our expansion into the Kepler expanse, we discovered ancient human colonies, abandoned facilities. Some still had preserved samples. We took them for study. You grave-robbed our dead and experimented on their remains, Katie said flatly. We were trying to understand, the Skorath said. The legends about humans described impossible abilities. Rapid adaptation, resistance to disease, mental flexibility. We thought if we could understand the genetic basis for these traits, we could improve our own species. By kidnapping and experimenting on innocent people, Megan added, her voice cold. The Skorath representative had no answer to that. Crystallis, the Luminari historian, spoke up. This explains much. The Skorath's aggressive expansion, their confidence despite facing superior numbers. They believed they could unlock human advantages through their experiments. And did they? Katie asked. She needed to know. If the Skorath had succeeded in creating enhanced soldiers with human capabilities, it changed everything. No, Vexlar answered. According to our analysis of their data, every experiment failed. They could isolate some human genetic traits, but could never successfully integrate them into other species. The subjects either died or became unstable. Katie felt a mix of relief and horror. Relief that the Skorath hadn't succeeded. Horror at how many beings must have died during those failed experiments. "We need to investigate these facilities," she said. "Immediately. And we need to find all the prisoners who are still alive and get them medical help." "Agreed," said the Council's presiding officer. "We will organize a joint task force. Ambassador Reeves, would humanity be willing to provide medical support?" "Absolutely," Katie said. "We'll send our best medical ships and personnel." "The Skorath Empire objects to this violation of our sovereignty," the Skorath representative said, but his voice lacked conviction. Everyone could see that his empire's credibility was shattered. Captain Alex Hunt led the joint task force to the Omega Nebula. He commanded a fleet of 15 ships, 5 human medical vessels and 10 security ships from various species including the Vezic, Luminari, and Delphine. His own ship, the HSS Ranger, was a specialized rescue and recovery vessel. Alex was in his 30s with a background in military special operations before transferring to humanitarian missions. He had seen the worst of humanity's civil war as a child and had dedicated his life to preventing that kind of suffering for others. When they reached the Skorath facilities, what they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The complex consisted of 12 stations, each one dedicated to different types of experiments. The task force split up to investigate them all. Alex took his team to the largest station. Inside, they found row after row of containment tanks. Most held dead subjects preserved in chemicals, but some were still alive, barely, their bodies twisted by failed genetic modifications. "Get medical teams in here now," Alex ordered, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Anyone who's still alive, we stabilize them and get them to the medical ships." His team worked quickly and professionally, despite the horror around them. They found beings from 37 different species. Most had been held for years, some for decades. The few who were conscious enough to speak told stories of being kidnapped, experimented on, and left to die when the experiments failed. But then Alex's team found something in the deepest section of the station. A single containment pod, different from all the others, newer, better maintained, and the subject inside was human. "Commander, you need to see this," one of his team members called. Alex rushed over and looked at the pod. Inside was an elderly human woman in stasis but alive. The pod's display showed basic information: name, age, genetic markers. The name listed was Stephanie Wells, age 87, but according to the pod's timer, she had been in stasis for 812 years. "How is this possible?" Alex breathed. His medical officer, a man named Chris Walker, scanned the pod with a handheld device. The stasis system is human design but very old. Pre-Civil War era. She must have been in stasis when the Skorath found her. "Can we wake her safely?" Chris nodded slowly. "The pod's in good condition. But Commander, if she's really been asleep for 800 years, waking up is going to be traumatic. Everything and everyone she knew is gone." "We can't leave her here," Alex said firmly. "Get the pod onto the Ranger. We'll wake her under controlled conditions with full medical support." They carefully transported the pod back to Alex's ship. 12 hours later, with a full medical team standing by, they began the wake-up process. Stephanie Wells opened her eyes slowly. The first thing she saw was Alex Hunt's face looking down at her with concern. "Easy," Alex said gently. "You're safe. You're on a human ship. My name is Alex Hunt. Can you understand me?" Stephanie tried to speak, but her throat was dry from centuries of stasis. Chris quickly gave her water. After a moment, she managed to croak out a question. Where am I?" "You're in the Omega Nebula," Alex told her. "But Stephanie, I need you to prepare yourself. You've been in stasis for a very long time." Over the next hour, they gently explained everything to her. The civil war that destroyed human civilization, the retreat and hiding, the long silence, and finally, humanity's return to the galaxy just weeks ago. Stephanie took it all remarkably well, considering. She was a scientist, she told them, from the colony ship Pioneer. They had been heading to establish a new world when they were attacked. The ship's captain ordered everyone into stasis pods before the ship was captured. She was the only survivor they'd found. 800 years, she whispered, staring at her hands as if they belonged to someone else. "Everyone I knew is dead. My daughter was on the Pioneer. She was only 8 years old." There was nothing Alex could say to that. No words could ease that kind of loss. 6 weeks after the discovery of the Skorath experiments, the Skorath Empire still refused to fully comply with Council sanctions. Supreme Commander Krelvor had recalled all Skorath vessels to their home territory and closed their borders. Intelligence reports suggested he was preparing for war, building up forces for one massive strike against humanity. President Mitchell knew they were running out of time. Either humanity would have to back down and let the Skorath regime continue, or they would have to act. There was no middle ground left. He called an emergency meeting of his senior staff. General Harper was there, along with Admiral Drake, who had returned to Earth for consultations. Katie Reeves attended via holographic link from the Council station, and Jake Morrison appeared from his ship, which was still patrolling near Kyrathi space. Opinions? Mitchell asked simply. We should strike first, Harper said immediately. We know where their forces are concentrated. We can disable their entire fleet before they have a chance to launch. That would be an act of war, Katie pointed out. An unprovoked attack. It would destroy any trust we've built with the other species. The Skorath are planning to attack us anyway, Harper countered. Why should we wait for them to choose the time and place? Because we're supposed to be better than them, Jake said quietly from his screen. We said we wouldn't be conquerors. We said we'd be protectors. How does launching a first strike make us protectors? Mitchell looked at Drake, who had been silent so far. Admiral? You're the one who would have to carry out any military action. What's your assessment? Drake leaned back in his chair, looking older than his years. I can destroy the Skorath fleet. I can probably do it in less than an hour. But then what? We'll have killed thousands, maybe millions of Skorath. We'll have proven that we're willing to use our superior power to eliminate threats. Every other species in the galaxy will look at us and wonder if they're next. So you're saying we do nothing? Harper asked, frustrated. I'm saying there might be another option, Drake replied. What if we don't attack their military? What if we go after their leadership instead? Everyone turned to look at him. Explain, Mitchell said. Special operations, Drake said. A small team inserted into Skorath homeworld. They capture Krelvor and his inner circle, bring them back to face trial. Without their leadership, the Skorath military will have no one to give the order to attack, and we demonstrate that we can reach anyone, anywhere, without destroying entire fleets. Katie nodded slowly. It's risky, but it sends the right message. We're after justice, not conquest. Who would lead such a mission? Mitchell asked. Drake smiled slightly. I know just the person. 2 days later, Captain Alex Hunt received his new assignment. He read the orders twice, then looked up at the holographic image of Admiral Drake. You want me to infiltrate the most heavily defended planet in the Skorath Empire, capture their supreme commander and bring him back alive? Alex said. Sir, with respect, that's insane. Yes, Drake agreed. But you're the best we have for this kind of work. Your team rescued those prisoners from the Skorath facilities. You understand their security systems. And more importantly, you believe in doing things the right way even when it's hard. Alex thought about it. His team was good, the best in the fleet. But this was asking a lot. How many people can I bring? He asked. 10, Drake said. Choose carefully. Alex chose his team over the next 12 hours. All veterans, all volunteers, all people who understood they might not come back. His second in command was Brandon Cole, a tactical specialist who could plan an operation in his sleep. His pilot was Michelle Torres, who could fly anything with engines. Chris Walker came along as team medic. The rest were experts in infiltration, combat, and extraction. They loaded into a stealth transport, one of humanity's most advanced ships. It was small, fast, and could slip past sensors like a ghost. The journey to the Skorath homeworld took 3 days. As they approached, Michelle brought them in low and slow, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their presence. They landed in a remote mountain region, far from any cities. From there, they would have to travel 200 kilometers to reach Krelvor's command center. Remember, Alex told his team as they geared up, we're not here to kill anyone unless we have no choice. This is a capture mission. In and out, clean and quiet. They moved through the Skorath wilderness at night using advanced camouflage that bent light around them. The Skorath had excellent security, but it was designed to watch the skies, not for threats moving on the ground. It took them 2 nights to reach the outskirts of the capital city. Krelvor's command center was in the heart of it, a massive fortress that looked impregnable, but Brandon had studied the schematics recovered from the Skorath research facilities. He found a weakness, an old maintenance tunnel that led under the fortress. It'll be tight, Brandon warned, and probably trapped. Everything's probably trapped, Alex replied. Let's go. The tunnel was exactly as unpleasant as expected. Narrow, dark, and yes, trapped. But human technology could detect and disable Skorath security systems easily. They made their way through slowly and carefully until they emerged in a sub-basement of the fortress itself. Now came the hard part. They had to get up 15 levels to reach Krelvor's command center without being detected, in a fortress full of Skorath soldiers. They used a combination of stealth technology and careful timing, moving when patrols passed, hiding when guards came near. It took 3 hours to climb those 15 levels, 3 hours of held breath and racing heartbeats. Finally, they reached the command level. Brandon hacked the door controls and they slipped inside. Krelvor was in his private chambers studying tactical displays. He was alone, which was lucky. Alex had worried they'd have to fight through a dozen guards. They surrounded the Supreme Commander before he even knew they were there. Alex pressed a weapon to the back of Krelvor's head. "Don't move," Alex said in the Skorath language translated by his suit's computer. "Don't call out. Don't do anything except stand up slowly." Krelvor froze. Then slowly he turned his head to look at Alex. His yellow eyes widened in recognition. "Human," he hissed. "How did you get in here?" "We walked," Alex said. "Now you're coming with us. You're going to face trial for war crimes." "Never!" Krelvor snarled. He reached for an alarm button on his desk. Brandon was faster. He disabled the button with an electromagnetic pulse from his suit. Michelle moved forward with restraints designed to hold even a Skorath as large as Krelvor. "We can do this easy or hard," Alex told him. "But either way, you're coming with us." Krelvor looked at the 10 humans surrounding him. He was a warrior, bred for combat. He could probably kill 1 or 2 of them before they stopped him. But he couldn't beat all 10, and some part of him, the part that had studied humans for years through those illegal experiments, knew that they were serious. "Why?" he asked. "Why not just kill me?" "You have the power. You have the weapons. Why go through this charade of justice?" "Because we're not like you," Alex said simply. "We believe in justice, not just power." They restrained Krelvor and began the long journey back down through the fortress. This time it was harder. Krelvor was large and heavy, even with their enhanced strength helping, and the restraints, while effective, weren't silent. They had to move more slowly. They were halfway through the tunnel when alarms finally began blaring in the fortress above. Someone had discovered Krelvor was missing. "Move faster," Alex ordered. "We need to reach the ship." They emerged from the tunnel into the wilderness and started running. Behind them, searchlights lit up the sky. Skorath forces were mobilizing. Aircraft launched, searching the mountains. Michelle had the transport ready. Its engines were already warming up when they arrived. They threw Krelvor into the hold and strapped in as Michelle launched immediately. Skorath fighters gave chase, but they were too slow. The human stealth transport accelerated to speeds they couldn't match, and within minutes it had left the atmosphere and jumped to faster-than-light speeds. They had done it. They had captured the supreme commander of the Skorath Empire without firing a shot or killing a single guard. When news of Krelvor's capture reached the Galactic Council, the reaction was mixed. Some species celebrated, others worried about the precedent it set. Could humanity just kidnap leaders they didn't like? But Katie Reeves addressed those concerns head-on in her next council speech. "We didn't kidnap Supreme Commander Krelvor," she explained. "We arrested him for crimes against sentient life. There's a difference. We have evidence, witnesses, and clear violations of council law. He will face a fair trial. He will be allowed to defend himself. And the verdict will be determined by council judges, not by humanity." The trial took 3 weeks. Evidence was presented from the research facilities. Survivors testified about their captivity and torture. Stephanie Wells stood before the council and told her story of 800 years in stasis, taken from her family and used as an experiment. Krelvor's defense was simple. He had done what he believed necessary for the strength of his empire. He showed no remorse, no understanding that what he'd done was wrong. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all charges. The sentence: life imprisonment on a neutral world with his assets seized and used to.